The chances of Blizzard changing anything at this point is non-existent, but I gotta say a few words before I get into the Herbalism builds. Therefore, this is the Midnight Beta. Be aware that stuff might change, and if they do, I will let you know. Therefore, why not sub the channel? Let's get into the builds. First build I'm discussing is a beginner-friendly build. It's a casual gatherer stuff. If you aren't sure about where to spend your knowledge points because the economy has not settled on prices yet, this is the build for you, because it plays it safe. And it doesn't matter where you spend your knowledge points, every single point that you spend in either of these trees will benefit you in one way or the other. The real question is how much. Therefore, I'm trying to recommend a build where you won't get a headache and just think that, oh, I messed everything up. This is the safest build ever, and we're starting with botany and we're spending 10 points to unlock the mulch. The mulch is quite a great thing because the imbued one in particular will give you 1 lotus every hour. So our first priority is to unlock the imbued mulch, and then whenever you craft this one and use it, you will get 1 lotus, a guaranteed lotus. That is huge. At this point you have 2 options. First of all, if you aren't playing a druid and you require the gathering while mounted perk, you need to spend 30 points in botany. If you are a druid, however, you can skip ahead to Bountiful Harvest and max Bountiful Harvest to its fullest, because we have 2 great perks now. The first perk is at the 20 milestone, and it will increase your maximum possible yield whenever you're gathering by 1. And the last one will increase your minimum yield by 1. This is huge. You want this. This is guaranteed profits. After maxing out Bountiful Harvest, on scenario A that you're playing a druid, you need to go back to botany and max the main node out because it is giving you skill and you want all of those skill. On scenario B, however, you already have maxed out the main botany tree. Therefore, you need to go to the overload and spend 40 points here. Now, I want to mention something here. A lot of people will go into cultivation and there is a lot of debate around that subspec because it is kind of great. It gives you seeds and it will give you the green thumb, but it requires 40 points to max out just for 1 perk that is useful. Seeds ain't that profitable, at least it wasn't in the Woven, and as far as I know in the Midnight it won't be. Just like the seams that was from the mining profession, seeds are something that you can skip to the very end unless a specific farm gets discovered where you are utilizing seeds. Therefore, seeds are strongly recommended to be skipped, and you will go to the Midnight Overload. Spend 40 points here to get everything. And by the time that you have unlocked all of these specs, the economy has settled on prices and it's quite obvious where you should spend your extra knowledge points. Now this was the safest build, okay, but now let's get into the fun ones. Regardless of what build you're going for, as a druid you're always unlocking your mulch because that's a guaranteed lotus drop every single hour. And as a non-druid dual gatherer, you're getting farming while mounted perk first because that is a priority, and then you get your mulch and then you move on. That is always the same in every single build, just be aware of that. So in this scenario where we are playing a druid gatherer, we just get our mulch and go into Bountiful Harvests. The first thing you need to do is to again max out Bountiful Harvests because it will increase your yields, and that's just non-negotiable profits. You just need to max Bountiful Harvest out because it's just 40 points and it will unlock every single one of these subspecs. Therefore, this is a must. Now, because we're focusing on lotuses in this specific build, we will choose these subspecs over everything else in the entirety of the profession. Therefore, you will choose one of these, max out, then move to the other one, and so on. Personally, I want to start with the Bloombringer because that is what the mulch is using. So the mulch only uses Tranquility Bloom, and because it is using Tranquility Bloom, I personally prefer if I get the Bloombringer first, then move into the others, but this is entirely up to you. Again, this is one of those risky builds. We're not sure which one of these is the greatest. You just have to risk it and choose for yourself. Regardless of which order you max out the sub-spec, you need to max out the entirety of Bountiful Harvest before moving on to other tabs. And it is a huge commitment because it needs a lot of points. And we are maxing everyone out because it will give us extra chances to discover lotuses at the end. Therefore, be warned, this is huge and this is time consuming and it is very risky. Do it at your own risk. And now, just like our previous build, if you're playing a druid, you have not maxed out botany yet, therefore you need to spend at least 25 more points here. This is up to you. Personally, I will just max it out to be done with it, but this is up to you entirely. Therefore, get it if you want. If it doesn't bother you, just it's 5 points. Just skip to Midnight Overload and get all of the overloads, because the overload will give you an extra charge of overload. That is the first important thing to get here, then delve into the specific modes, whichever one of these ends up the most profitable one. Because we went into the Lotus Build, by this time when you're speccing into the modes, it's plain obvious which one you should spec into. Just check the market for the most profitable one and spec into that one. And again, there is the discussion of cultivation, and I think at this point of the beta, cultivation is best kept for the last thing to do, because 40 points is a lot. I mean, maybe they buff it up, and if they do buff Green Thumb or change any of these specs, it would be quite awesome. I mean, the perception is quite great, but again, 40 points is a lot. Another build I want to do is an independent Midnight Overload build. Now be aware that this could simply fail at the beginning of the expansion because we're not sure what's gonna happen with the modes, but it is a doable build, and I know that some people have ults ready to spec into the Overload and straightly go into the Overload, but again, this is risky, therefore do your research before speccing into it. Personally, if it was up to me and I wanted to do an ult with Midnight Overload as the main spec, I would spend 40 points in the main Midnight Overload because you're getting a second charge. And a second charge is quite more important than all of these sub-specs. After I have gotten my second charge, I will definitely get the wild one because the wild ones are in the Solomon, and the Solomon modes have a blessed lower buff that increases a stat in the gathering professions. Therefore, I think there's going to be a very short window of great profits coming out of all of these wild modes at the beginning of the expansion. Again, this is all my opinion, and I would like to know yours, so tell me in the comments if you think the wild one's gonna be amazing at the beginning too. But personally, I will spec into the wild ones, and when I have finished the wild ones, I will go into another one of them, depending on how the economy is reacting to the modes, as by the time that I have these 80 points. In a completely another scenario, you can skip the other modes here and maximize your profits from the wild ones, just sticking to Zul'Aman and getting the points out of botany system and the bountiful harvests. That is a possible alternative too, so just mix and match all of this stuff to get the most out of that alt gathering build. But the possibilities are quite infinite, and it's so risky that I cannot recommend anything. But if I were to spec into the Midnight Overload, I will play it safe, finish out the wild mode, then move to a primal one or a void one. I think that the light fused ones will be the cheapest ones because they are in Eversong. And at the last build, I want to talk about my own plans. It's always good to share your own plans. Now, I want to warn you guys, I'm not mainly a dual gatherer. I'm mostly a crafter, and I do gathering sessions here and there to just get a few materials or a few Ks of gold to get my token. And yeah, just be aware of that, but it's always good to share your own plans, right? First thing I'm gonna do is to get the imbued mulch. That's quite obviously one of the greatest things ever. Then I will definitely max out my yield from every single herb that I'm picking. So 40 points in bountiful harvests, it's just too good to pass up. And after getting this bountiful harvest, because I'm using the Tranquility Bloom with the mulches, I'm speccing into the Bloom Bringer. And after maxing out the Bloom Bringer, I do have extra chances of getting the Lotus from these Tranquility Blooms. And now I will max out the Botany Tree, because it is giving me a lot of skill and it's one of the safest choices ever. After I've maxed out the Botany, although I'm playing a Druid, I will go to the Midnight Overload, max the Midnight Overload, because it's great to invest points in every single tab to be safe. Again, every single point that you spend into gathering professions will help you in one way or the other. So it's profit nonetheless. The question is, how much? And this is the safest thing you can do. Therefore, after I have done all of this, I will do my research around cultivation to see what's up with that. And if it's not that profitable, I will still keep it for the last phase of my profession and go to Bountiful Harvest and spend points into all of these herbs. After maxing these 4 out, I will go back to Midnight Overload and maximize this overload stuff. Then at the last thing I would do, if it's not still buffed, I will get the Green Thumb. Because again, I think that's best left for the last thing that you do with your knowledge points. You can get the Empowered Mulch too, but I don't recommend that. It's just more finesse. So finesse ain't that important at the beginning. It might be at the beginning of season 2. And if I do observe that I'm getting less than most gatherers out there, I might swap the imbued one. So in this scenario, the Lotus has lost value, and now you're swapping to the Empowered Mulch before everything else and just getting more finesse for your raw herbs. That's all my plans. Let me know what you think. And if you do end up enjoying the video, do leave a like or a comment down below. And why not even sub the channel, right? I will see you in another one. Bye bye.